Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about ESFs and how to actually learn to fly them. Now, this isn't going to be a video teaching you how to reverse maneuver or how to do any fancy tricks. Instead, what I'm going to attempt to do is give you a sort of timeline and a guide for what you should be doing at different levels of ability in the air. Now, this is primarily intended for people interested in how to dogfight with ESFs, but it's also going to be fairly applicable for anyone interested in a primarily air-to-ground role as well. Something I hear a lot of people talk about is how difficult it is to learn how to fly in Planetside. They're not wrong. It is difficult to learn how to fly, but it becomes even more difficult if you try to learn the wrong way. Hopefully, if you're new to flying or interested in it, this will help make your learning process as simple as possible. So, step 1. As I mentioned, I'm not going to be teaching you how to do a reverse maneuver or anything like that. There's already dozens of great videos out there about that, and teaching maneuvers isn't really my forte. However, it is vital for everything that follows that you become familiar with these maneuvers. So if you're not familiar with them, you definitely want to go out, watch a couple videos, and learn how to do those. Now, you've watched a couple videos about how to fly, and you've done a reverse maneuver in the warp gate. You're ready to just jump right out and start poning noobs, right? Wrong. When you first start learning how to reverse and do maneuvers, don't learn them on live server. Even if you think you know what you're doing, the minute you get attacked, a little bit of panic is going to set in and you'll forget everything about how to fly and meet a fiery demise. What you need to do is go to VR training and practice flying like what I'm doing right now. Make sure you're pushing what you think you can do. Put your ESFs places it doesn't look like it will fit. See how quickly you can pull out of a dive or come to a stop. Learn how long it takes your ESF to get into hover mode from different speeds and at different angles, and practice dropping into hover and then a reverse maneuver until it's muscle memory. I also like to do little practice scenarios. Imagine there's an enemy ESF chasing you. Practice taking tight turns around obstacles and transitioning into hover mode while you're blocked from sight, and then pull up to where your enemy ESF would be appearing. It's all about getting comfortable with maneuvers so that you don't have to think about them in an actual fight. Many people underestimate how helpful VR is for newer pilots because it's not like live combat. They're right, it's not like live combat. But just like if you're a soldier, you don't want to be firing a gun for the first time when your life depends on it. You don't want to be reverse maneuvering for the first time in a dogfight where your resources and a moderate cooldown timer depend on it. Not the best analogy maybe, but hopefully you get my point. Either way though, VR is incredibly helpful for learning how to maneuver, and I even still try to spend at least 30 minutes or so a week in VR just flying around getting some high-speed maneuver practice. But now let's say you've spent some time in VR. You can fly around at the speed of light without so much as brushing a nanite-reinforced tree. You can do MLG passes on the targets, leaving nothing but slowly disintegrating green particles in your wake. It's time to jump into the biggest fight you can find and start wasting fools, right? Wrong. This step right here is where I see the most people go wrong. They learn to fly passively, and then they just start jumping into high-pop continents like Indar, where they're instantly going toe-to-toe with pilots that have hundreds of hours of flight time. They get repeatedly destroyed, get discouraged, and feel like they're never even going to have a chance to compete, and they give up. I was at this point the first time I started trying to fly ESFs. But a couple of months after that, I decided to try a different tactic, and it's what I want anyone who is trying to learn to fly to try as well. Go to a lower population server like Amrish and start flying there. The action won't be thick and fast, and you won't be making crazy fast experience, but what you will get is a much more noob-friendly environment in which to learn the ropes. What you've been watching is me flying on Esamir. Notice how most pilots will simply try to run away instead of turning to fight. That's what you want to be starting out with. It will help you learn how to lead with your nose gun without putting you at undue risk. You'll be able to start learning how to approach targets, and if you do get jumped, it's much more likely to be by a player of your own skill level that you'll get a good fight with. On that note of running away from fights, don't do it unless you have absolutely no chance of winning and you think that you'll be able to get away. Even if you're dead and there's nowhere to run, turn around and fight. Sure, you'll still die, but you'll start getting little bits of experience fighting against better pilots or while outnumbered. You don't learn anything about how to dogfight if you get killed running away, but you can learn if you get killed facing your enemy and fighting back. Also, it's much more epic to go down fighting than to go down running away with your tail between your legs. Now, when I learned to fly, I was at this step for a couple of weeks. I flew around on Amrish over a couple of different characters until I found that I was easily beating most anyone I ran into and was even winning some 2v1s and 3v1s. When you reach this point, it's time to move into the big leagues. When you find yourself flying around Amrish with confidence, move to either Esamir or Indar depending on your server and how confident you are. On Waterson at least, Ozimir is basically a middle ground between Amerish and Indar, but depending on the server that could be a little bit different for you. At this point though, it's going to be like your first day on Amerish all over again. You're going to realize that the great pilots are still miles ahead of you, but you'll have two advantages over people who went straight from BR to Indar. One, you'll have enough experience to actually be damaging those pilots and giving them a bit of a fight, and two, you'll already have seen the progress you can make, and if you ever get really frustrated, you can fall back to Amerish and build up your confidence again. These two advantages will hopefully allow you to realize that with some time and practice, you too can become a great pilot, and that will give you the incentive to not give up and keep flying. So hopefully if you're thinking about getting into flying, this will help you out, and if you do find it helping, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Nothing makes me happier than hearing that I helped someone out, and it's the entire reason I make these videos. I won't lie, as I said before, flying well in Planetside 2 is incredibly difficult, and it does take a good deal of time and practice to master. But once you start finding yourself beating pilots that used to just mop the floor with you, well, that's just a feeling you can't beat, and the first time I had that feeling, I knew I was hooked.
A new conglomerate has taken the facility.
Jesus, dude. Look at Amerish compared to Esamir, how much territory we have. Like, it's like the same. Oh my god. I probably can't pull sight for a long time now, I think. Yeah, it's like 6 minutes. I'll fuck around. Hey, Kansas.